Hello everybody, yes I did say I would be streaming again, and so here I am, streaming again. Yeah, so I'm just going to, like I said, do a reaction video to more greedy things. I did a greedy thing reaction, so now I'm just gonna do top 8 ways to, I thought just top 8 ways to earn money, and like, what? Okay, so let's just get started.
Charging money for a red dot site.
Yeah.
With a $100,000 price tag,
you're quickly gonna see a trend. At least last time there was a trend. So.
One of the greediest things found in video games, and we'll start with Fallout 76, considered to be.
Wait, is this the first one? Because I know we did this another time.
One of the worst game launches of all time. Aside from countless bugs and server issues, Bethesda added the shadiest microtransactions despite the game already costing $60. The Atomic Shop let you buy emotes and skins for extra money, which nearly caused the game's fan base to riot. Tons of items had fake prices, pretending to be 50 or 30% off, but it got even worse because pay-to-win items could also be found here, like the Repair Kit. To make things even more shady, the Power Armor edition of the game cost $200, which included a helmet and a high-quality duffel bag. But when players actually received it, the bag was a cheap knockoff. So to apologize, Bethesda slapped players in the face with $5 of in-game currency, which wasn't even enough to buy an in-game bag, never mind a real one. And that's not even half as bad as what EA did to Battlefront 2. It was one of the most highly anticipated games, improving on everything in the first Battlefront, except EA ruined it before it even came out. It was revealed that the game had loot boxes and a ton of microtransactions that made the multiplayer completely unfair. EA turned the game into pay to win. If you wanted your favorite characters like Darth Vader or Yoda, you either had to grind for dozens of hours or simply swipe your credit card. The backlash was so powerful that Disney actually had to step in and force EA to get rid of the microtransactions. EA originally made them cheaper, and just before release, they straight up deleted them from the game. The controversy was so big it caused dozens of countries to make loot boxes illegal. And even though that was a huge situation, it was nothing compared to EA's shadiest decision of all time. With UFC 4, the game originally looked great. It was received well by players, and review scores were pretty high. It was released as a fully fledged $60 game, and everything seemed to be going well. Scores were pretty high. It was released as a fully fledged $60 game, and everything seemed to be going well, but secretly EA was waiting for the hype to die down before they pulled off one of the greediest decisions in gaming. After an entire month had passed, EA updated UFC 4 with ads. Despite the game still costing $60, EA really thought they could give people real ads in the middle of a match and nobody would notice. And so another company that's been called out recently is Rockstar. Last year they released the GTA Trilogy Definitive Edition, and it was a complete remake of classic games like Vice City and San Andreas. The trailers made it look phenomenal. They were developed on Unreal Engine, had insane graphics, and seemed like a love letter to the fans. But when it released, everything was exposed as a lie. The game was a buggy mess and had the exact same issues the originals had over 20 years ago. It showed how lazy the developers actually were and exposed Rockstar for rushing it out to make money. But did you know that Blizzard charges $100,000 to max a single character?
What?
Real money to level up your characters. One player took this to the absolute extreme and spent thousands on his account. He got his barbarian to the next level, but it cost 6 figures to do so. And this wasn't even the greediest part, because he could barely play the game anymore. With his character being so overpowered, the game wouldn't matchmake him with any other players, so he spent all that money for nothing. And so it gets even more ridiculous, because in 2018, Metal Gear made you pay for extra save slots. I'm not kidding. Konami released a spin-off called Metal Gear Survive. It was a $40 survival game.
Metal Gear needs to stop. Oh my gosh. First paying to protect your loot in a game where you're supposed to loot other players, and now this. Metal Gear needs to stop. This is terrible.
And that was full of microtransactions. But the developers were so shady that they actually put extra saves behind a paywall. Yeah, if you want to start a new game or just make a character for a friend, it will cost $10. But the culling was 100 times worse. This was a battle royale that was pretty popular in 2016. But thanks to the success of games like PUBG and Fortnite, the developers of the culling decided to re-release it in 2020, except when it came back, the game cost $6. Not the most expensive until you realize that buying the game didn't actually mean you could play it. Instead, you were only allowed one match per day. If you wanted to play more than that, you had to buy matches with real money. You can buy packs of 3
What?
20 matches, and it will cost up to $5 to top up your tokens, depending on how many you wanted. The developers made it expensive on purpose, so that you would look at their online pass and think it's a bargain in comparison. Either way, players are being ripped off. One of the most famous controversies out there is when Bethesda practically invented microtransactions. In 2006, with the success of Oblivion, they released a pack named the Horse Armor DLC. This was a time in gaming when DLC actually meant extra content, so for Bethesda to charge almost $3 for Horse Armor, it didn't go well. The biggest problem is that Oblivion is a completely single-player game, and the Horse Armor didn't actually do anything other than look good. It was a paid cosmetic that nobody would see except you, and became famous because of just how greedy this was. Is that it didn't matter. The Horse Armor DLC was one of the best-selling packs on the Xbox marketplace, and it started the microtransaction trend that we all know today. Let me tell you, this gets even dumber, because Mortal Kombat once charged players real money to press a button. The series is known for fatalities and finishing your opponent in gruesome ways. It's also pretty simple to do this, because you just gotta press pause, and the fatality combo is right there. But with Mortal Kombat X, the developers wanted to make money in the easiest way possible. So, they made up one of the most ridiculous microtransactions in gaming history. You can pay $1 for easy fatalities, which will make the combos simpler. And I might have mentioned that it was $1, but you should probably know it only gave you 5 fatalities. That means if you wanted 30 easy fatalities, it costs $5. That is real money to do a combo that was already in game. I mean, shameless. But that's not as unsatisfying as the time that Dead Rising 4 put the actual ending behind a paywall. The game already had a fully fledged story, but never actually finished the narrative. The ending was just a cliffhanger, basically a slap in the face to anyone who cared about the story. That's when the developers announced an update after release that would continue the story and actually give players some closure, except it wasn't a free update or a spin-off game. It was a paid DLC pack that you had to complete in 90 minutes, and if you didn't do all the challenges correctly, you wouldn't even get the best ending. Now I'll admit, I don't think it would be considered as greedy as the time that Call of Duty charged players for a red dot sight. There's not even an explanation for this one. They literally put a red dot sight in Black Ops 4 and charged $1 for it. It was almost identical to the site that was already in game. You'd think that Activision would have learned, considering that Black Ops 3 was also called out for being shady. In that game, Treyarch got everyone excited with brand new weapons and items, except you could only get them in loot boxes, which were hard enough to earn through normal gameplay. So not only were they locked behind a paywall, but you couldn't even buy the weapon you want.
Oh my God. Earlier today, in the first stream today, I was talking about getting a new FPS game. Remind me to never get 3 and 4.
You had to gamble for it, and the odds of you earning one was like 0.8%. I'm serious. Speaking of gambling, NBA 2K20 took things to a different level. Despite already charging you for cosmetics, upgrading players, and opening packs, 2K decided it wasn't enough. In a game that is literally rated E for everyone, NBA 2K20 had a virtual casino that you could gamble your currency on.
Why?
It's like if Fortnite suddenly decided to put slot machines in the game and let you gamble your V-Bucks. That's how messed up this was. Now technically you could argue that loot boxes, packs, and other items have always been disguised as slot machines, but this was quite literally a casino. I mean, come on. And in 2018, EA released a DLC pack for The Sims 4 called My First Pet Stuff. It was a cute pack to let you get hamsters and other outfits. But despite the DLC's artwork and the description that says you can dress your cats and dogs, it didn't actually include cats or dogs. If you wanted to use most of the content in this DLC, you would have to buy more DLC. I'm just getting a headache at this point. But hey, it's just bonus content. You technically don't have to pay for it if you don't want to, but this Harry Potter game, on the other hand, locked you out of the game until you threw money at it. Hogwarts Mystery is a mobile game that has become known for how scummy and manipulative it is. It has an energy system that forces you to spend energy for each task. So, if you want to do a mission in the game, there's quick time events that take up your stamina. Once you run out, you've got to wait for it to replenish or pay money. And that is just the beginning, because what happens
Wait, I think I've played this game before. It stinks.
Evil. For one of the missions, you come across the Devil's Snare, and it attacks your character. So to escape, you must use up energy and fight it off. Except, the amount it cost to escape the Devil's Snare was actually more than the maximum energy you could even own. So, even if you went into the fight with full stamina, you would still run out. Basically, players were given the choice. They could either possibly wait hours to get through the mission, or pay money to get it over with, which is just super shady. You ever heard about how Apple was exposed for downgrading old iPhones to make you buy a new one? Well, turns out, not a new trick. Doing it in 2011 with Battlefield Play for Free. This is their attempt to make a freemium Battlefield game, but it turned out to be a disaster. For those who did play it, you could spend real money on better weapons, and that's to be expected, but things got heated after EA decided to make the premium weapons useless. players to buy even newer guns to get their money's worth. It was just a gigantic.
I need to. Oh my god! I need to take a break. This is. So... Hold on 1 second. I swear. This next one better not be as stupid. Or I will end the video right now.
Is how we're returning to Bethesda, because remember how they practically invented microtransactions back in the day? That's why it's no surprise to learn that they tried to charge people to mod Skyrim on PC. Pretty common nowadays to earn money through Patreon or they tried to make a profit from mods they didn't make. I mean, that's just a whole other level of greed. I will say they took it back super quickly because I mean nobody was gonna stand for it.
Okay, they removed it. They removed it.
Now, one of the most successful mobile games of all time could be considered pretty greedy too. While Candy Crush isn't on the same level as Hogwarts Mystery or Fallout 76, it's still raked in over $1 billion in 2020 alone.
Oh my!
How would they do this? Some have argued that the microtransactions in the game took advantage of the older generations, and honestly, it's not hard to believe. Ask a family member, they probably spent a ton on Candy Crush, and there have even been examples of people spending their entire life savings on the game. But that is not the greediest thing that the developers have done. You're not gonna believe this, but in 2014, King successfully trademarked the word candy in the EU. They used this to send out takedowns to other mobile developers who had the word candy in their titles. There was drama in the exact same year when a game called the Banner Saga Battle with King over the rights to the word saga. Yes, they tried to argue that Stoic couldn't copyright a Viking game because the Banner Saga shared one word with the Candy Crush Saga. This is just absolutely embarrassing. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
I swear. Anyway, 17 dumbest bands in video games. Let's go.
Meta, bust rate Frank again.
Last time you got a replacement Frank at Fins and Friends.
This is your brain when you're struggling to focus. And this is your brain when you're in the zone. But getting...
Watch Dogs is a well-known game where you're encouraged to hack, but one player was actually banned for trying to help report a serious issue. Someone known as Goron2000 was playing the game normally when he accidentally knocked out some NPCs. This is when he realized that Ubisoft had actually detailed the most inappropriate areas. Now, obviously, this seems super strange even for an 18-rated game, so he reported it on Twitter through PlayStation's sharing tool. And it wasn't long before he suddenly received a message from Sony saying that his account had been banned. But that was just the start because this dude got banned for literally being too good. Battlefield 1 has an interesting anti-cheat system called Fair Fight. It's a super complex algorithm that calculates and monitors all of your stats while playing live. So when it starts picking up huge kill streaks or really good scores that seem impossible, it could ban players for hacking. However, one time, 2 pro players managed to get a ridiculous score per minute, and it actually banned KL and his teammate. Now, thankfully, he was able to contact DICE and get both of their accounts back, but this has got to be one of the coolest ways to get banned. But perhaps one of the strangest bans ever is making a mistake on a piece of paper. Back at a 2016 Pokemon tournament, contestants were required to fill out their player information sheet so that the commentators had all the details about participants. But Jonathan Evans accidentally put down the wrong item for a member on his team, mistaking it for another that had the same use. It seemed like a completely innocent mistake, but the tournament didn't take it lightly, and he was actually disqualified from the entire competition.
Why?
Sure, he won't make
Okay, that's actually stupid.
Miller smashed his keyboard over 100 times and got banned for it. He's a Fortnite streamer well known for raging, but one time he was playing Apex and it pushed him a bit too far. Now, you might not think that raging is a bannable offense, but he was actually suspended because of how he did it. Deller smashed the keyboards against his head, so Twitch immediately flagged it as harmful and dangerous activity on stream. He did eventually get unbanned a year later, but let's just hope he's not smashing too many keyboards anymore. But one of the dumbest bans of all time has to be when a player was disqualified from a tournament after teabagging his own teammate. Dilly was playing an Apex tournament and joked around with a friend who was eliminated during the match, only to find out that he was banned for bad sportsmanship.
Yo, okay, Dilly is, Crazy Penguins is disqualified. That kind of stuff will not be tolerated.
Friday the 13th is a game based on the popular horror movies where you're either on a team of campers or playing as Jason himself. But for some players, they decided to ruin matches by teaming up with the killer and exposing their teammates' locations. Now you'd think that this would get you banned, but the story is so much weirder. One player encountered this problem and was super annoyed by the trolls, so he left a bad review on the game's Steam page. After it was posted, he soon found himself banned for sharing his thoughts. The dev said that it was because he was harassing players in game, but the community fully supported this guy, and Black Tower Studios received a ton of controversy as a result. But it's even worse getting banned because of your name. In 2016, PlayStation suspended a user for
I can see this is.
exactly that.
I can see this happening.
Under a popular Middle Eastern name, he played peacefully for 6 years until he was reported and banned for an offensive username. But the biggest problem here is that this was actually his real name. Despite this, Sony insisted that it broke their TOS and that he would have to change his username to get his account back and access all his games. From a bad review to a username, you wouldn't think that it could get much worse, but somehow For Honor managed to pull off one of the most hilarious bans of all time, a player who didn't even own the game. During an accidental wave around launch, many players found themselves getting banned for doing nothing. One person who didn't even play received an email saying that they had been suspended for hacking. This guy literally only had an Ubisoft account and hadn't actually bought or ever played the game. But Pokemon Go has an even stranger ban. Jimmy DeRocher was a dedicated player who perfected the perfect strategy. By using certain locations, lures, and lucky eggs to boost his XP, he made himself a super efficient way to grind the game. He gained over 1 million XP in a single day, and although he was playing with in-game mechanics, the devs saw this as exploiting and his account was suspended. And some other players were taking different strategies to a whole nother level. In several LAN tournaments, players began to purposely smell bad to distract other competitors around them. It even started to put off the admins, meaning they wouldn't want to monitor their screens to see if they were cheating. Eventually, this got so bad that the tournament had to include it in their official rules. But sometimes, the players trying to help are the ones getting banned. Dark Souls 2 became pretty infamous for all of its bugs, and eventually, players got tired of waiting for the devs to fix them. Eventually, the community decided to take it into their own hands and made a mod to fix tons of issues within the game. When the fixed mod was released, players immediately began downloading it to finally play the game bug-free. It worked so well, except the anti-cheat picked up on it, and everyone who used this would soon find themselves banned or sent to cheater lobbies. It made the game even worse to play than it was originally, all just for trying to fix the bugs that the devs wouldn't. And that's not even the dumbest ban from the Soul series, because in Elden Ring, players got banned for finding underwear in the files. Data miners discovered a pair of clothing called Deathbed Smalls that were cut from the game for being too risque. But the problem came when cheaters decided to hack in the underwear and wear them into online matches. These guys went around leaving them in online worlds for innocent players to pick up. And if this happened, the game would detect the hacked item and actually ban the innocent player for cheating. For Honor was another online game that dialed up the anti-cheat a little too high. Players found themselves kicked or even fully banned just for using a controller. In case you didn't know, some controllers can be modded to customize buttons for a better layout or to give an advantage. But a majority of the people getting banned for this weren't even using it to cheat. And while it is good to have a good anti-cheat, sometimes it feels like it goes a bit too far. In its early days, Fortnite had no shortage of cheaters, from fly hacking to sniping the entire lobby from across the map. But something you'd never expect to get banned for is playing golf. When Laserbeam was trying out the newly added toys, he decided to try to hit a golf ball into a basketball hoop. And well, it didn't go exactly as planned.
You got struck by the ban hammer. They're like, no, you can't use the golf club.
Thankfully, Epic doesn't actually have strict rules for basketball, and he was simply kicked for using a VPN to improve his connection. But you gotta admit, the timing on that was too good. But perhaps one of the dumbest bans ever is when DeFran purposely broke the rules to troll his team during an actual tournament. This time, it wasn't even the fault of the game, but instead the player just choosing to mess around on stream and even announced that he was going to throw the game. Now, Blizzard did make a statement suspending him for breaking the rules and for being unsportsmanlike, but why would you ever do this in a tournament? But I'm not sure if anything tops Epic Games banning someone for trying to make an account. Back in 2016, they launched the beta test for their new game Paragon. Along with many others who signed up for the beta, one player tried to make an account and found himself blacklisted. He tried to create an account using his real name and got an error message saying that his name matched a special national list from the United States, which would be a super scary message to get when you didn't do anything wrong. He decided to contact support to resolve it, and he even tweeted his strange experience on Twitter. But the surprise came when Tim Sweeney, the CEO of Epic himself, replied to his tweet apologizing for the mistake. Thankfully, they fixed his account and the issue to avoid any future problems. But one of the most popular bans that has ever been given out is to a Fortnite hacker. Jarvis was a member of FaZe Clan and decided he wanted to download and install a hacking client. This gave him aimbot, wall hacks, and a bunch more. Now, he probably would have had a much higher chance of getting away with it if he didn't make a YouTube video for everyone to see.
I don't miss a shot. I don't miss a shot, bro. Yo, we're cracked.
He first did it on an alt account, which was suspended after a few games. But he started making more and more and found himself getting banned on multiple accounts. It wasn't long until Epic took notice of the suspicious activity and banned his IP and hardware permanently. This meant even his main account was gone, even though he never hacked on it. And since then, he's never been allowed to play again, losing his entire Fortnite career in just one video. But that's 15 of the dumbest ways that gamers got banned.
But I guess that one was kind of deserved, but... Alright, let's just do another one.
I used to think that security threats and hackers look like this.
I don't care.
Getting humiliated by a game sucks, especially Metal Gear Solid, which punishes you just for enjoying it. If you spend too long in the field without a break, you'll start to smell really bad. Flies start swarming around, it's a problem. But once you return to base, your own crew will be repulsed, with Ocelot taking matters into his own hands.
You stink.
Not as shocking as Deus Ex punishing you for admiring the game. During the start of Human Revolution, you have to rescue some hostages. Except this is the opening mission, so obviously we're gonna explore and look for items. For those whose curiosity got the best of them, once you get to the hostages, they're all dead. Oh my god. Things really got personal when players decided to romance every girl in Persona 5 Royal. I mean, yeah, the game lets you do that, but it doesn't mean you should, because Valentine's Day gets awkward. You're way better at handling crowds of people in Sifu. This martial arts game is super unique thanks to one feature, old age. I'm not kidding. Every time you get defeated, your age increases, and you'll literally turn elderly. For those who can't put up a fight anymore, you'll get too old, and now you gotta start the chapter all over again. You also age in Mortal Kombat and continue to stress of online matches. Sometimes your opponent is simply better than you, and if you decide to rage quit, the game humiliates you even further with...
Quitality.
I was not expecting that.
Animal Crossing uses real clocks, so it knows if you haven't played in a day, a week, or even a year. Because of this, checking into your island and its inhabitants every day is super enjoyable, but it also has some consequences. For anyone who puts down the game and returns to it after a while, well, you got some work to do. The island's overgrowing with weeds, the star rating will go down, and villagers are unhappy that you left them for so long. If you somehow don't play New Horizons for 40 years, you'll open the game and be locked out. And speaking of animals, there's a Capcom game called Haunting Ground, and your dog companion is so important, they even put him on the cover. He helps you with your puzzles, fights off enemies. Who could say no to this little guy? Well, if you're a horrible person who neglects him, the game will never forgive you. I won't either, but that's beside the point. Once you reach the ending, he won't come and save you, leaving you to die in a glass box. Most of the time, you can get away with this stuff because no one knows the game trolled you, right? Well, in Skullgirls, one fan enjoyed the entire game, playing from start to finish without a care in the world. Until they beat it, and a message popped up saying, "What is the square root of a fish?" Now I'm sad. It makes absolutely no sense, so naturally they went on Twitter and asked the developers what this meant. Oh, that? It means you should probably buy the game instead of pirate it, which is a crazy response because it basically exposed them on Twitter to thousands of people. Being shamed doesn't just happen on social media. EVE Online has an annual event that is designed just to humiliate players. It's called GM Week, and the devs live stream themselves looking for cheaters. Not only are they shamed with an icon, they'll be teleported to a lobby full of players ready to destroy them. Yeah, it's a public execution, an insane way to combat hacking. The devs of Fallen Order took a different approach, and they decided to troll everyone who plays the game. On the first planet, you could ignore the main quest and explore for loot before you continue. Most of us can get away with this until you spot this frog in a cave. I don't care if it's the start of the game, I'm good enough to fight this guy, right? Well, that's until you drop down and Ogdo Bogdo reveals himself, the most difficult boss in the entire game without a warning. From players who are too curious to those who got bored, if you play Metal Gear Solid 3 and decide to take a lengthy break from the story, you will regret it. By the time you come back, all the food in your inventory is spoiled. I'm not talking a couple days here. This only happens if you're gone for weeks at a time, so maybe you deserved it. One of my favorite trolls comes from Bethesda and Morrowind. As you're exploring the world, there's a chance a random mage falls from the sky. You mind your own business, but let's be a jerk and loot him. Here you'll find a spell that gives you a jump boost. If you stopped and thought about this for even a second, you would probably avoid it. But for those who were overconfident, they used this thing and immediately got sent to space. Yep, no fall damage, and you go splat. Now you know what killed the mage. Being overconfident is one thing, but in Payday 2, you could be straight up evil. Sure, the game is about robbing banks, but you can at least do that as peacefully as possible. No one is telling you to go out and wipe every civilian in the area because, I mean, that's messed up. Luckily, the devs realized this and added a personal punishment if you do it. For every civilian you take out, you gotta wait 30 seconds in custody. That means your teammates could do the entire heist without you if you went on a rampage. It's not worth being evil, but it's also not worth being a tryhard. In the original Jack and Daxter, you could complete the entire game without a care in the world. If that wasn't satisfying enough, you could totally go for the 100% completion and get every power cell. It was extra work, sure, but the reward sounded amazing. A secret ending. Who would've want that? Well, that's until you actually got there and this door was finally unlockable. Let's open it and see what's inside. Wait, that's it? Turns out you had to wait for the sequel to answer this question, so there was no point in all that work. I can understand being punished for leaving the map, though. In GTA 5, the entire island is surrounded by water. It will be very difficult to escape unless you had a plane or something. It's GTA, of course you do. And trying to leave doesn't give you an invisible wall or turn you around. Nope, it is so much more terrifying than that.
Oh.
The smartest developers are the ones who hide a punishment in the game's design. In Left 4 Dead, players came up with the craziest ways to survive a horde. Usually this involves getting to a high vantage point where they can't reach you. Well, the devs thought of this while making the game and purposely added a zombie with a super long tongue. It can reach you from insane distances, dragging you towards them and away from your teammates. One of the funniest trolls is for diehard fans of Sly Cooper. At the end of the second game, once you've spent hours completing it, you get to finally sit back and watch the credits. Maybe you grab a snack or something, and as it shows those final names, you might expect a post-credit scene. That's until the game tells you to get out of here because you've seen everything you want, now go outside. Clarence Little. Of course, it's an average GTA mission, so it's never as simple as that. This involves a huge chase that leads you to a final showdown on the rooftop. Clarence will surrender and plead for mercy. This is where the game actually gives you a choice. You can just end up here or walk away and let him live. But bear in mind, this is Grand Theft Auto, so your decision will have consequences. If you have trust issues, the mission is over and you can move on with your life. But if you're more forgiving and spare Clarence, he'll come back later only to try and kill you.
I might be but you so.
If you consider yourself smart, though, you're probably someone who's tried to exploit a game before. I wouldn't recommend doing it in Assassin's Creed Odyssey because it will punish you just for trying. Alright, you can purchase an Olympian gift, basically a loot box that hands you an amazing item. But this is a single-player game. Surely if you don't like what's inside, you could just load an old save and try again, right? Well, your currency is stored on Ubisoft servers and not your hard drives. So, you went back in time, lost the loot, while the game kept your money.
God, please, no!
If you love being disrespectful, don't play Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life. The devs have no time for people who are playing rude, especially to your wife. So in the game, you have a spouse and a kid who occasionally visit you while you maintain the farm. Nice to see them every time you get the chance, but some people just ain't cut out for marriage. Thanks to the dialogue options, you could be a certified jerk to your wife if you ain't cut out for marriage. Thanks to the dialogue...
What?
options, you could be a certified jerk to your wife, and she won't sit there and take it. Eventually, she'll give up, take your kid, and divorce you. If you take those anger issues out of Splatoon, don't be one of those players who rage quit all the time. I mean, yeah, we've all done it, but if you rage constantly game after game, even Splatoon tells you to just calm down with a message that drops the hammer on you. Now, it doesn't mean you should always be the nicest person around. In The Last of Us Part 2, you can wipe out an entire squad of enemies, leaving only one person remaining. If you're on the brink of killing them, they'll throw down their gun and beg for their life. Pretty convincing performance, so you're likely to spare them, but I don't recommend that because they'll use your kindness against you and start shooting from behind. Betrayal. Yeah, it sucks when it happens to you, but imagine you were the one shooting someone in the back. Well, you can do just that in Sea of Thieves, sneaking up on another player and blasting them with a blunderbuss. They'll get taken out immediately, and your reward is being called a coward. Hey, sometimes that's how it goes, but the worst kind of player is someone that truly breaks the rules by hacking. In Warzone, there are way too many cheaters, and the developers have spent night and day trying to find a solution. Instead of just banning them, they thought they would have some fun with the hackers. So in June, the anti-cheat was updated a new way to mess with modders, fake enemies. Yeah, the hallucinate opponents distract them, so they'll mess with good players and also make them very obvious. Those are 24 games that punish players.
Okay. Oh, it's only been 30 minutes, but that's it. So